Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on, even with the Sideshow Bob shit going on. Check this out though. The United States is still trying to send humanitarian aid to this the country of Venezuela, which for those who don't know is at the tippity top of South America. Now, the United Nations has actually sent a warning out to the United States saying that we can't use humanitarian aid for political purposes or to push a political agenda, and they're warning us not to try to force Venezuela to take this aid. Now, the reason why they're saying this is because the U.S. has named or acknowledged another guy as president, a guy by the name of Juan Guaido, and he's using this support to pretty much try to push out the current president, Nicolas Maduro. And now this humanitarian aid that's being denied at the border is being used as kind of like a political tool. So, we'll see what happens. It's a lot of funny shit going on over there, and stay tuned. Now, we are 2 days away from finding out what's the verdict on this border wall government shutdown situation, because Trump has again threatened to shut down our government if he doesn't get his $5.7 billion. Well, earlier this week, 2 days ago actually, the government, Congress actually, and not Congress, talking about the Senate, came to an agreement on a bill that actually appropriated $1.7 billion towards Trump's stupid ass wall. And the Democrats were even willing to give up putting a cap on how many people they would actually house in these detention centers or whatever, which is pretty important. But nevertheless, that was the concession that they were willing to make, and only 1.7 going towards the wall. Now Trump is down. I'm hearing of that they might even take funds from these other disaster relief funds that were supposed to go to Puerto Rico, that's supposed to go to California, and put it towards building this wall. Atrocious. I don't even have words for that. Green wall and graduation. We journalists out here, so we gotta stick together. So I gotta shout out Maria Ressa, who's actually a Philippine woman who's won a lot of journalism awards here. Nevertheless, she's a target over there because she is the founder of a news outlet known as Rappler, which is they're pretty much about telling the truth, and they go rogue against the government over there because the president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, runs it like a dictatorship, not to mention his drug war that's taking the lives of thousands. He runs it like a tyrant, and President Trump always salutes him. So that's why I'm going to bring this story to light. Maria Ressa, she's actually been arrested and wasn't even told why. I mean, the details of why. It's basically for cyber libel, which, because in 2012 she exposed like some criminal business ties or whatever. But, she doesn't even have information on it. She's been a constant target for being a truth exposer. So, exiled Turkish cleric Fethullah Gulen is actually, who was exiled for initiating a failed coup d'etat in 2016. A coup d'etat, for those who don't know, is an attempt to basically take the country's leadership regime out of power and impose and put another regime. Nevertheless, since that 2016, there have been over 77,000 arrests made and about 130,000 people that have been actually lost their public sector government jobs as a result of this coup. And now they accuse this man of leading this coup, who's now in the U.S., Fethullah Gulen. And recently they've actually handed out over 1,100 warrants to people who had ties with them. And this is important because we actually have ties with Turkey, and we have, we have occupation over there. So how is this happening on our watch? Who knows? So after 3 months, over 200 hours of testimony, and 56 witnesses, the Sinaloa cartel leader, Mexican drug lord Joaquin Guzman, otherwise known as El Chapo, has been found guilty of 10 counts of drug gangster-related crimes. We're talking about conspiracy to lead a criminal enterprise, which carries a mandatory life sentence. We're talking about international distribution of drugs. We're talking about weapons holding, big weapons, of course, and we're talking about laundering drug money. Now, there's an ensuring lawful collection of hidden assets and to provide order bill being pushed by Senator Ted Cruz. And peep the acronym, motherfuckers think they slick, but they basically trying to take $14 billion from them, which the government's trying to get, and then put it towards the wall. How slick is that, man? So the Senate the Senate actually overwhelmingly passed this public lands bill, which actually takes away places in the country that the U.S. can do, like mining and set up oil pipes and pipelines through and all of that, whatever. So essentially added 4 new national monuments and expanded the area of like 8 different national parks. And yeah, so it's a total of 370,000 acres are now also prevented from being mined on. And that's good for that's a slight win for the environment. So that's why I gotta speak on it, man. Green War and graduation, you know what the fuck going on. So the Houston Chronicle and the San Antonio Express, these newspapers down in Texas, they actually did a report and found that there are over 20 years of sex abuse at the Southern Baptist Church. Now they're citing that there are as many as at least 700 victims, or actually over 700 victims, and many of them are like children, even some as young as 3 years old. There are women victims as well. Stories of women actually being abused and raped and then told to have abortions. We're talking about stories of, they found that there's 380 leaders, deacons, priests, and all of that, whatever, being accused. Now, I seen the pictures or whatever. We talking mostly white men, because, we don't really even move like that. Nevertheless, this is a tragedy, and this is the largest Protestant denomination in the country, so war, green, and graduation. So there are 8 families that are actually suing the Trump administration for their zero tolerance border patrol policies and them, separating kids from their families. These 8 families in particular are citing signs of trauma with their kids, knowing that these kids were actually in situations where they weren't even able to eat or able to sleep. So basically these are families who've gotten their kids back, and their kids are just not functioning how they were. Like, they're just completely distant, and it's fucking sad. Like, it really is fucked up that this is going down. But nevertheless, these 8 families in particular are suing for $6 million. So, I hope they get quadruple that, man. Fuck them. Fuck, not the families, of course. I'm talking about the administration. But signing out. Green War and graduation. The Center for Disease Control, the CDC, actually said that there have been over 100 cases of the measles being caught in the United States since the beginning of 2019. It's only 44 days. Now, over 100,000 kids die from the measles every year globally, but 55 of these 100 cases that have been caught in the U.S. have mainly come from Washington State, and the CDC is actually blaming us on their lax vaccination law, saying that parents are easily able to opt out. And I think this is always going to be a dispute between, people who say are anti-vaccine and people who are pro-vaccine, because at the end of the day, motherfuckers ain't chemists at the end of the day. So I would always say, you should go with what fruits and vegetables and holistic approaches, so you can at least, verify, this is what's helping and this is not going to hurt me or whatever. But nevertheless, just guard your grill if you're out there, man. Salute. War, green, and graduation. So, out in Cali, a young 20-year-old rapper by the name of Willie Bo from the FBG gang, whatever, he actually got killed by 6 police officers, where they ran up on him and approached his car, guns drawn, and he was in the car, asleep. And when he woke up and I guess startled, the officers, they shot up his vehicle, and now he's gone. He didn't pose any threat to them or whatever, and that's what the fuck went down. That's fucked up. For the record, FBG over there is not to be confused with the FBG clique in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? FBG, like FBG does. We got that slide set that I can go hard as fuck, but it's 2 different organizations. Nevertheless, though, rest in peace to Willie Bo, man. You know what I mean? I'm not associated with his music. I don't associate with it. Don't even know it, but I know to go out like that is fucked up, and it's just an extent of police brutality. So in Queensland, Australia, it was actually a drought that lasted 7 years. We're talking about 7 years of no rain, and out of nowhere, it starts raining, and it starts raining, and it keeps raining, and then all of a sudden, it just destroys the area with flooding. So now, 500,000 cattle were actually killed from this flooding. And there's still cattle that's alive, but the humans can't get to them amidst all of the flooding and the other dead cattle that they would have to get around. So, you know, these cattle are very likely to die in this hot and baking sun that they just out there sitting in. So it's real crazy. It's looking like an environmental catastrophe, just even that in and of itself. Not to mention that cattle, $500,000, is worth about $213 million American dollars over there, and that's their biggest export. So, you know, it just shows you the extent of climate change and how we got to switch it up, man. Green, war, and graduation. So one of America's top 10 richest people, Michael Bloomberg, former mayor of New York City from 2002 to 2013. He runs Bloomberg Media. For those who don't know, that's where you get your financial info from, or whatever. It's a big channel for that. Nevertheless, he's talking about putting up $500 million up against Donald Trump for the presidential bid for 2020. He's even considering running himself, but that $500 million is essentially going to go to, you know, I guess whatever Democratic PAC that he wants to support is going to support whatever candidate he wants to support. So in general, me personally, I don't trust it. I don't trust the dude that was enforcing stop and frisk, which by definition is just racist. You know what I'm saying? Like, I won't trust a guy like that. I'm not trusting any like super filthy rich billionaires as the president. But I'm gonna still watch your channel though, Bloomberg. You know what I'm saying? Because I know that's the game you trying to give to your white golf buddy. So I'm on that. So Vice President Mike Pence, he's actually calling for the severe, you know, consequences to be inflicted on Somali American, one of the first Muslim women to ever be in Congress, Ilhan Omar, who is a Democratic representative of Minnesota, and because of her tweets recently basically suggesting that politicians in America are being paid by lobbyists like AIPAC, you know, these are Jewish institutions, to essentially be pro-Israel. Now, this is all happening. It's funny. Now, he's calling for her to be, you know, suffer consequences. Trump even said that she should resign, or at least resign from the Foreign Affairs Committee. And this is all in light of there being legislation pushed against boycotting anything that has to do with Israel. How hypocritical is that?